This episode will be completely taken out of context. Welcome to the Fact Check This podcast.
All right, Fact Check This podcast, and I apologize. I didn't do this yesterday. I've got a lot going on the next couple weeks and spending a lot of time with Katie this week. And yesterday was the only day that I really had to get the yard mowed and get a lot of other stuff done. So it just wasn't really in the cards to do a show yesterday. And also I was kind of struggling with the thing that I had picked for my topic for this week. I didn't like it. It's probably culturally and societally relevant, but in light of what I've been trying to do with these last few episodes, winding this down, it just rubbed me the wrong way as something that, while I think it's probably important, I don't necessarily think it's something that I wanted to talk about on this show. And Johnny and I have talked about it some, about the topic itself, some on peddling fiction over the last couple shows. And so I feel like I've covered it well enough with that I just didn't want to dedicate a whole episode of this to talking about the aftermath of the Carmelo Anthony stuff. And if that's something that you want to hear my thoughts on, then I guess let me know and I'll revisit it and I can talk about it next week. But I didn't like that as a standalone topic for trying to wind this down on a more positive note. And I consider this topic for today to be a more positive note. We'll see how the audience feels about it. I ended up settling on this and deciding to do this after some conversation with Dag and Steve after the morning show this morning. We were talking about cell phones and taking time without your phone. Steve was talking about he and his wife go for a walk, and he leaves his phone at home when they go for a walk, and they go for relatively long walks, and he leaves his phone at home. He talked about being in Germany and not being accessible, not being available all the time, and we were talking about we all grew up during an era where we didn't have phones, where people just didn't have constant access to you all the time. That's a new concept. That's not normal. That shouldn't be considered normal. Honestly, that's an affront to our privacy. And so it got us on the topic of Katie's going to a camp in a few weeks where they're not allowed to have their phones for the week. And her mom and her mom's wife made a big deal of, oh, well, she needs her phone because, she just lost her brother. And what if she needs to talk to somebody and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, and when Katie was telling me about this, about going to the camp and them not allowing her to have a phone, I was like, Katie, that'll be good for you. You need that. You need to be disconnected from all of the bullshit. Like when I was a kid, our parents dropped us off at camp and forgot that we existed. We didn't have phones or anything like that. Like you could write letters to your family if you wanted to, but why would you? Like, I'm not trying to call my parents every day or send my parents letters and tell them how I'm doing at camp. Fuck that. I'm at camp to be at camp, to enjoy being at camp. Like, if something happens, God forbid, my parents can get a hold of the camp and they'll let me know. Or if something happens, God forbid, the camp will get a hold of my parents and let them know. The camp that I went to was called Wilderness and Water Sports. And we weren't even at the main campground. We were at a separate little campsite, and it wasn't even really a site. It was basically like a little shelter structure and a bathroom, and that was like the base camp. And then they would drop us off, and the actual camp was about a half a mile up this giant hill. And our parents would drop us off at the base camp thing, and then we would hike up this hill to where they had these giant platforms with these big tents on top and like wooden bunks, and you just throw your sleeping bag on your bunk, and there's no power, there's no running water. Like the closest we have to running water is a faucet that runs to these shower stalls. So it's just like straight, well water out of the fucking mountain that runs to shower heads that stick out in these wooden booths, and that's where you would take a shower with just straight cold mountain water. Had outhouses, just basically a pop up with a hole in the ground that you shit into. Like we cooked all of our own meals. We would get up in the morning, cook meals, hike down to the bottom of the hill, and then go across to where the lake was, hop in kayaks and canoes, and kayak and canoe out across the lake to this little beach where we would set up. And then we would hang out there all day and cook. And they had pontoon boat and a ski boat that would come pick us up and take us out. And like, we didn't have access to any technology, any other people, nothing. We are just out there. And that was totally normal. And we all survived, and like probably better off for it. This parents my age that went to the same kind of camp that now think they need to have like a tracking device on their kids at all times and all this bullshit. I've never been that parent. I will never be that parent. Like, I am appreciative of the technological advances that are on their phones. Like the morning of the accident, to get that text message and know immediately something happened. That's incredible. But I'm also not like reliant on that stuff. I don't like worry about what's going to happen if I don't have constant, like if I can't just call my kid immediately all the time and like be able to track their every move. Like, it's unnecessary. It's insane to feel like we need to have that all the time. And so that brought me to, I felt like this was a good topic and a good article to talk about today. Parents, consider underachieving. I see you, parents who have been killing it this school year. You were there for the Halloween parade, the Valentine's Day craft session, the inexplicable request to come to class for your child's half birthday. You made sure said child was dressed up for every school spirit day, somehow managing to continue caring, even as you knew the inevitable next school spirit day loomed. It is now spring, and while I admire your continued enthusiasm, I, for one, have very little spirit left, and I am asking for your support. I am proposing that we all just give up together. This may feel extreme, but so was the day last June I spent camping out in the vestibule of my children's elementary school, attempting to attend 4 separate celebratory events between the hours of 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. Each activity, poetic picnic, birthday read aloud, was, of course, special in its own way, much like my children, who, for the record, number only 2, but that final stretch before summer break nearly broke me. I can still recall the shame of watching the other more spirited moms arrive at field day lunch armed with Chick-fil-A for their kids, leaving me to try to pass off a stick of Trident fished from my purse as a special dessert, or the shame of assuring my 6-year-old and 7-year-old that their ancestors came from nowhere so that we could get out of representing a country at the school's inaugural World Fair on a Friday night. I am just so tired and so bad at crafts. I dream of the day we can all take it down a notch without shame skipping an event here, ignoring a made-up holiday there. What I need is a quorum. Without it, my kids will continue to feel neglected. All their friends went to the World Fair, and they said the food at Venezuela was incredible, and I will continue to feel guilty pretty much all the time, but especially when I'm staring at my ceiling at 3 a.m. So far, support for my phone-it-in approach has been hard to come by on the local level. I sent a polite email to the school principal last year, gently noting that some parents have jobs and/or sanity they'd like to hold on to during the spring season. Honestly, I was mostly hoping that my husband, blind carbon copied, would take the hint and show up for something called Math Morning. He didn't, and the PTA continued to plan a staggering number of events. I have to believe that, on a national level, there are dozens of us underachievers. It's a lot for really no reason. Penn Holderness, a dad in North Carolina, sings in the music video he made with his wife Kim, "Welcome to Maycember." They set the banger to the always catchy groove Earth, Wind, and Fire September. Should we not chill out with the scheduling, Mr. Holderness croons? The couple hit all the maddening highlights. The class picnic that's going to last all day. The dance show where your kid is 41st in the lineup. Miss Holderness stars in the video as a mom who's about to lose it. I can recall my own mother setting foot in my elementary school approximately twice. Once to bring in allergen-filled cupcakes for my birthday, and then again to bring in the family dog, also allergen-filled, for show and tell. It was the 90s when children roamed free and parents felt less pressure to create endless magic and attend endless events. A fun childhood afternoon for us elder millennials involved Capri Sun, a bike, maybe some light trespassing in neighbors' yards, and a key to let yourself back into the house when you were done. Yes, the good old days. What? When kids were kids and adults were left the fuck alone. It takes so much more to catch and keep this youngest generation's attention. Some of it is the dopamine spiking, Vegas style addictiveness of their screens, with which everything else must compete. Excuse me. And some of it is a self-fulfilling prophecy that adults have created. We are the ones who have set unrealistic expectations around parental organization and involvement. We have acclimated our children to curated playdates and blowout birthday parties, to days like the March Friday, wherein my children enjoyed a spirit day, a wacky hat day, and a jungle-themed school dance, all within the span of 10 hours. Once kids have a Friday like that, nothing else will do. Now, I, for one, and Katie and Nadia can attest to this, aim to set the bar incredibly low. Do not expect me to do a bunch of over-the-top, crazy bullshit. We will have fun moments that will be memorable, but I am not going to dedicate myself to whatever the fuck this stuff is that this lady is talking about, that these schools are doing. I never participated in that stuff at the schools. My wife is not a big fan or supporter of that kind of stuff. Y'all be doing too much. Y'all be doing too much. You need to bring it down a notch, or 75. Pump the brakes. Kids are going to have a fun, enjoyable childhood, even if you're not constantly cramming all kinds of insane bullshit into them at every single turn. We can underachieve. This may help to explain why my family and I spent a recent Saturday afternoon ziplining across the world's largest indoor ropes course. I had suggested a walk to a local playground. The children countered with an activity that required me to pay $116 and sign a staggering number of safety waivers. This is what it takes for them to feel alive. And this is also part of the problem. Is for some reason, my generation, as parents, believe that you can never tell your kids no. If they want it, you have to do it. If you didn't get to do it as a kid, they have to do it. Even if it's something that you didn't even know existed when you were a kid, that you had no idea that you missed out on. You find out as an adult that it existed, and you're like, oh, I didn't get to do that when I was a kid. I need to make sure that my kids don't miss out on anything. Like, that's absolutely fucking batshit. Don't do that. If you say, hey, let's go to the park and walk around and have a nice, relaxing afternoon, and the kids are like, oh no, we need to go to the biggest indoor zipline ropes course on the planet and spend $500 for an afternoon. Tell them, or I can take away all your electronic devices. You can sit your happy ass at home and do yard work. Would you like to go to the park, or would you like to do yard work? Quit treating children like you need to be their best friend. Your job as a parent is to raise good, productive, well-adjusted adults, not to be their friend. I cannot tell you how many times I've told my kids, my job is not to be your friend. It is not my responsibility to make you like me. I am here to make you into a good human being and a productive adult. And sometimes that means telling you no. And sometimes that means I have to be a hard ass. And sometimes being a hard ass is dependent entirely on how you choose to behave. And a lot of these parents who are getting burnt out on all of this bullshit would really do themselves a favor if they enforced some responsible and reasonable behavior on their kids. But I digress. In times like this, I like to imagine the mythical OG mom, helicopter parent number 0, who kicked off this whole arms race. We're all entitled to our origin theories, but I believe our current era began with one moment, one terrible mistake of a question. I picture her as a former sorority president with nothing to lose. Good morning, she types in an email to her school principal. I was just wondering if parents might be allowed to come to field day this year. It feels so hard to roll it all back now, but I'm trying to be optimistic. The other day, I witnessed something that gave me a glimmer of hope. One of the moms in my daughter's first grade class had an idea. She asked ChatGPT to create a fake flyer advertising that jungle-themed dance. She gave the AI chatbot some specific instructions. The resulting flyer depicted 3 parents in a rainforest looking pumped. On closer inspection, the parents were all dads. They danced joyfully with their children as a toucan and a monkey look on overhead. Dads bring their kids, the flyer declares in bright, albeit grammatically incorrect lettering. Dads and kids welcome. Not a mom is in sight. Now, this obviously doesn't get to the root of the problem. The dance will still go on. The children will still have unrealistic expectations, and my husband will suffer. But nevertheless, it feels like a good start to me. Part of this at the end is, or this at the end is part of the problem, is that a lot of times it's the moms that are not just participating in, but that are really the cause of all of this insanity. And this goes to a broader topic on other societal problems, but it's that suicidal empathy, the absolutely destroy yourself, your family, your sanity, everything about your life out of a sense of empathy, because you don't want other people to feel hurt or left out. You don't want your kids to feel like they missed out on something. The thing is, we don't need to be constantly just dumping insane amounts of crap on our kids to keep them entertained. It is not your job to provide for all of the happiness and entertainment that your child gets out of life. It is your job to raise a well-adjusted, responsible adult. That's the job. And we can create moments as we go through doing that. but we need to raise them right. And every time they say, but I want this, and you say, okay, you are doing a disservice to your job. That is not raising them to be responsible, well-adjusted adults. That is raising them to believe that they should and will get anything and everything they want just because that's what they want. And that's not life. Sorry. Hate to break it to you. More often than not, you're probably going to get told no. You can ask any of my kids. My default is always no. If they ask me for something or ask me to do something, my default is going to be no. Immediate answer is no. And then after it sinks in, I might say, hang on, let me think about it. We might be able to make that work. But initially, my answer is always going to be no. And it's not because I'm trying to be some hard ass. It's not because I'm trying to be mean. It's not because, and a lot of times it's not even necessarily because we can't. It's because there are a lot of other things that have to be considered before you just jump into whatever the thing is that the kids who have literally zero responsibility for anything want. And so my answer is always going to be no. And then as my brain processes it, it might change to yes, but don't get high expectations, especially, go right out of the gate. And also that's why a lot of times moms are the ones who get wrangled into all this shit, because that suicidal empathy, they will say yes to all of it without even thinking about it, because they just want everybody to be happy and feel loved. And I'm sorry, but that's not the reality of life. And our job is to raise well-adjusted adults, not to give children everything they want forever so that they grow up to be spoiled children. So yeah, underachieve some, do less. I have told Katie, I don't know how many times, she needs to cut down the number of things she does. She has way too many activities that, like, I will admit, I in school had a lot of activities, but by and large, my activities didn't overlap. You had, seasonal sports and then clubs that only happened during school hours. So there wasn't a whole lot of, like, outside of traveling for away games and having to be at school extra hours for practices and stuff. Like, most of my stuff was confined to a normal day, more or less. They have this stuff where they travel multiple times a week to all sorts of different stuff and, like, have to leave school and all of these things. And all of these clubs, they need money and they need parents to sign up and volunteer for all of this stuff. It's insane. There's no way that you can manage a full-time job, multiple children, just normal schedules, school and whatnot schedules, and all of this extra shit. And the adults, the parents who just keep saying yes over and over to their kids, are as much responsible for their own headache as anybody. Like, say no. The kids know once we've hit a certain threshold of things that are going on, I'm not doing anything else. So either you can figure it out or you're not going to get it, because I have a threshold. I only have so much bandwidth to dedicate to taking care of myself, taking care of the family, and then extra bullshit. And once the bandwidth has been filled with extra bullshit, I will shut the fuck down and we will do nothing. And I'll start taking away extra bullshit to make up for it so that I can get some of my sanity back. Parents need to understand that you are the adult. It is your job to set boundaries. Children with boundaries grow up to be well-adjusted adults. Children without boundaries grow up to be petulant fucking children who think that the world owes them something. Do less, but do what you do well. Make it important to the kids. I really like that, Trey. Make it important, make it meaningful, make it memorable. But it doesn't have to be a nonstop barrage, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Personally, I think by just loading up all of these bullshit activities, it actually undermines the activities themselves and it makes them less meaningful. It makes them less enjoyable. It makes them less of something that the kids are actually going to take joy out of. It's not going to contribute to their happiness. You're just adding fluff. Make it important. Make it meaningful. Make it rare. It shouldn't be the expectation. It should be a treat. And then it will actually stick as something that they remember and something that they loved and enjoyed and talk about with their friends and talk about as they get older. Like, if you just do it all the time, it's not special anymore. It's expected. And then it's useless. Yeah, Trey says, I find the adults act just as petulant as children lately. I shouldn't have to serve whiny adults who don't do anything for me. And that's another, like, there is a certain entitlement that there is an entitlement hierarchy that has been created through all of this bullshit where now the overbearing mom who wants to do all of this stuff thinks that she has earned some sort of an entitlement because she has done all of this stuff. And what have you done? You haven't done all of this stuff. So you should be doing this stuff for me and blah, blah. It creates a artificial hierarchy for people who do not have value outside of their own invented hierarchy. They have to have all of these activities because these activities make them feel important and make them feel special. As the average parent, you have just as much of a right to tell your kids no as you have to tell the Karen mom that wants to over-organize everything no. Tell her, I only have so much bandwidth for your bullshit, and I have hit my limit. If you want to make it happen, you go make it happen. And don't bitch about it when nobody else wants to participate with you, because this is on you. My Twitter bio reads, stop being a bitch. And that's good advice for anybody and everybody. Stop being such a bitch. Just tell people no. It is not your job to make anyone happy. Your job is to take care of you, take care of your family. That's it. So be good at your job. And tell all the rest of them to go the fuck away. To do less. To embrace being an underachiever. Because you're going to find a lot more happiness in life. And I bet your kids will too. Try it out. That'll do it for today. I will be back next week. I can't remember what the topic was for next week. I've got another one saved. And no, I won't be back next week. I'm actually off the next 2 weeks. I'll be out of town visiting with my family. So I will be back. What's that? July 14th. So I will be off the next 2 weeks. I will be back July 14th. At least that's the plan. And then working on guests and scheduling for Justin and Jim's final Dumb Gay Shit Show, which I'm planning to do by the end of July. So probably the last week of July is my plan. Wrap this thing up by the end of summer. So anyway, that'll do it for me. I will see you in a couple weeks. Later.